November 5th is going to go down as the single most important day in the history of our country.
Is that the hockey game?
We're going to take it and we're going to make it like it should be, respected. Right now, we're not respected. Right now, our country is known as a joke.
That was Donald J. Trump last night after cleaning up on Super Tuesday. No, it was not Lake Placid back in 1980.
Miracle on Ice. It sounded
good.
As ferocious as that.
That was Mar-a-Lago last night, where Donald Trump took care of business on Super Tuesday. Not quite sweeping. He lost Vermont, took the other 14 states, and he is on his way to the nomination after rolling with massive margins. That's the story out of last night. By the way, it's great to be here. Baby number 3 is in tow. Charlotte Rose is doing great. And thank you to Ray Stevens holding down the fort with John and Mark the last couple of days. We'll get into more of that throughout the morning here on KCMO. But the story last night is not that Donald Trump won Super Tuesday. We all knew that was going to happen. We all knew what the outcome was going to be. The story out of last night is that Donald Trump racked up enormous margins. You look around the country, from Minnesota, where he cleaned Nikki Haley's clock 69-29. Colorado 63-33. California 79-18. Tennessee 77-20. Alabama 83-13. North Carolina 74-23. And then bellwethers, places like Virginia, where Nikki Haley thought to herself, maybe I've got a shot. In a place like Virginia, it's a purple-ish state. Northern Virginia is very Washington, D.C. centric. Maybe I can challenge Donald Trump in a place like Virginia. No, Trump won by 30. Everywhere you go, Massachusetts also may be more favorable to Nikki Haley as a more moderate Republican. Donald Trump clears 60% of the vote. Thing is over. And that's why you heard Nikki Haley, or you heard the reports this morning, that Nikki Haley is going to suspend her campaign this morning in a speech coming up at 9 o'clock. We'll carry some of that right here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM and see what exactly Nikki Haley says and what her approach is. Does she take the I will endorse Donald Trump approach, or does she do the Ted Cruz circa 2016 vote your conscience? Remember Ted Cruz at the campaign doing that whole dog and pony show, and he got basically booed out of the stadium? Well, Nikki Haley might go that route. I don't think she will. I think she will congratulate Donald Trump, but I don't think she'll endorse him right now. I don't believe she's going to do the whole vote your conscience thing, but I think she's going to leave her options open for either jumping on the Trump train or for backing off and not jumping on the Trump train.
Would her, reinforcing, well, I pledged to vote for the Republican nominee, leaving it at that?
She may do that.
Would that count as a Trump endorsement to you? I would think not. I think it's, what's the word I'm looking for here? Blowing a little smoke?
You got to say Trump's name.
Yeah, but she wouldn't, I would say.
I don't think there'll be a lot of Trump mentions today.
Right.
I think today will be about her and about why she's stepping aside, and it will be short and sweet and to the point. That's all I think we're getting today out of Nikki Haley. And then, Trump gets to play this game of apprentice, right, where he gets to kind of pick and choose who his VP is going to be now the next few months. Is Nikki going to jump on the Trump train? So he gets to kind of let this thing play out in the weeks and the months ahead, and that's just how he likes it. Now, we know that this is going to be one of the longest presidential campaigns from a general election standpoint that we've ever had. Joe Biden is the incumbent. He is running. Michelle Obama said that she is not going to run. We'll get to that later this hour here on KCMO. So it's Joe and it's Don. Rematch 2024. So what is Joe Biden's approach going to be here? Well, Joe Biden put out a statement last night after it came out that Donald Trump obviously rolled on Super Tuesday. And here is what Joe Biden had to say in this statement. Tonight's results leave the American people with a clear choice. Are we going to keep moving forward, or will we allow Donald Trump to drag us backwards into the chaos, division, and darkness that defined his term in office? So it's very clear Joe Biden is laying the foundation for what his campaign is going to be. It's not going to be about moderation. It's not going to be about infrastructure and roads, and I'm just here to fix your potholes. Come on, Jack. That's not what it's going to be. He is going for the Trump jugular. He is going for the Trump is the mean man. Trump is going to drag us back into chaos and division, despite the fact that most people probably remember a time that, your dollar went a lot further. There was far more economic prosperity, and there was a heck of a lot more global peace as well.
Dragging us back into darkness is kind of liberal speak for we will throw more temper tantrums as we did during his administration.
Yes.
Because we didn't get our way.
CNN will have a lot of coverage about, certain bans and, oh, my goodness, this tweet.
Well, yeah, real or made up.
Yeah, well, that's a good point as well. The statement goes on to say, 4 years ago I ran, writes Joe Biden, or one of his handlers, because Grandpa was fast asleep by then. And let's be honest. You think he was staying up for this? 4 years ago, I ran because the existential threat Donald Trump posed to America that we all believe in. Since then, we've made enormous progress, 15 million jobs, wages rising faster than inflation, taking on big pharma and the gun lobby, and winning. But we have more to do. All of that is just nonsense. 15 million jobs, you're counting jobs that you replaced from COVID. Stop with the 15 million jobs. Go on Main Street. Ask people if their wages have risen faster than inflation over the last 3 years. He goes on the note here, if Donald Trump returns to the White House, all this progress is at risk. He's driven by grievance and grift, focused on his own revenge and retribution, not the American people. It is awfully rich for the guy who right now is being investigated, or at least his family is being investigated, for profiting off his name, to talk about anybody else in American politics and the word grift. Donald Trump could be bankrupt. There are courts and there are district attorneys who are trying to take every last dollar this guy is worth because he had the audacity to run for office in America. Donald Trump could end up, God willing, this won't happen because it just wouldn't be fair. But Donald Trump could end up being broke for the simple fact that he ran for office and he upset the apple cart and shook up the status quo. Whereas it's indisputable that Joe Biden's family, maybe not Joe, but Joe Biden's family got incredibly wealthy because their father and their brother was a U.S. senator and then a vice president for the better part of 40 years. And that's it. And this guy has the stones to talk about a grift when it comes to somebody else in politics?
Compared to the president who did not take this salary.
Well, yeah, that's a great point as well.
How about that?
Guy didn't take a dime.
Greedy man.
Yeah, that is so true. If Donald Trump's years, regardless of, if you're a traditional Republican, Democrat, Independent, doesn't really matter. If Donald Trump returning to the White House risks the progress of Joe Biden, sign me the bleep up.
In permanent ink.
Please. 913-408-7957. It is great to be back. Thank you to Ray. Thank you to John and Mark. Thank you to John Whitmer filling in for Ray on KCMO. And I didn't want to miss this show. It is great to be back with you, and we're going to have a very busy morning here on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. We'll get to you, what yesterday means, and with Michelle Obama out of the mix, what does that mean for Joe and for the country these next 8 months? We'll get to it all coming up on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio. Celebratory morning at Mar-a-Lago, I'm sure. They're doing their happy dance down there, not because I've got a third daughter, which is, great for us, but because they've got themselves this GOP nomination all lined up. It's in the bag. by Super Tuesday. 913-408-7957. Steven's first up on KCMO. Good morning, Steve. Steven in Kansas City.
Man, congratulations, Pete, on your betting basketball team.
I don't know if I have any Caitlin Clarks on my hand, but I think we'll be just fine. Thank you, Steven. Appreciate that, brother.
Oh man, I tell you, just coming up roses, man. We are on a roll. Trump train is on a roll. I'm getting feelings of 2016. I mean, literally, the liberals' heads will explode. I mean, if this report that Elon Musk was at Mar-a-Lago over the weekend, that he's going to probably front all the cash needed. I mean, it just can't get any better. I mean,
here's the thing, Steven. You've been a Trump train rider since day one, right? Since before I was doing this show in 2018. I think right now, you say you've got feelings of 16. You should be feeling better than 2016.
Yeah. Yeah,
I mean people are waking up, man, and they are saying, I want to go back to the Trump years. And that's where Joe Biden's whole thing of like the dark days of Donald Trump. People lived it. They weren't dark days. They were a little goofy on some days, but they sure as hell weren't dark compared to the last 3 years, Stephen.
Listen, I think, I'll tell you what, if I had to use my political instincts dating back, 6 presidential campaigns here, I would go with Laken Riley. I would put her out there. They're going to destroy Joe Biden. I mean, I hate to be overconfident, but if I was running the campaign, Nikki Haley, got to give her flowers. I mean, she set a record. She got the first GOP woman primary victory in Vermont.
Mm-hmm.
I think she would do what Wall Street Journal is saying, that she's going to focus on independents today and trying to convert them over and not endorsing Trump. But, it's just I think she's going to come around. I think she's probably hurt by the bird brain stuff and needs a little time, kind of like Ted Cruz.
Yeah.
After
Listen, I think
stuff.
I'm with you. I think Nikki is going to come around, Steve. And thank you for the well wishes.
Yeah,
I appreciate it. Give us one more choo-choo for the Trump train.
Choo-choo! Go Trump, go!
Okay.
Elon Musk for vice president.
Thank you, Stephen, in Kansas City, kicking it off.
Never a dull moment.
No, it is great to be back on a Wednesday. I'll tell you that right now. If I wasn't excited, Stephen's got me excited. Choo-choo! All aboard! Listen, he's right about Elon Musk apparently visiting Trump down at Mar-a-Lago, which is wild. The Nikki Haley stuff, I think it's going to calm down. One thing a lot of people don't realize is Ivanka and Jared Kushner were always and have been for years very close with the Haleys. Now, we know that Don Jr. is not a fan of Nikki's, but let's be honest. When push comes to shove, who does Don listen to? Ivanka, and listen, I'm now a girl dad of 3, as is Mark. The girl's got you wrapped around your finger in a way that, boys really never can. I don't think Trump's going to do anything or say anything more about Nikki. You didn't hear her mentioned last night at all. He had that one kind of trip up there after, I forget which primary that was. Maybe it was New Hampshire when he went off on Nikki because she wasn't dropping out. But here's the thing about Trump, and this is what's going to be tough for Joe Biden. Joe Biden's best chance is if Trump steps on the rake and it keeps smashing him in the face. I don't see a lot of evidence that is going to happen. I've seen, I don't want to say a different guy, but at least a guy who's been more measured. A guy who has gone up there in most of his speeches and talked about coming together and unifying and welcoming and winning this election on the backs of, America first, and talking about the issues that actually matter to people and using Joe Biden's record from the last 3 years, which is just horrific, against him. Doing the obvious thing, John.
Well, excuse me. I'm thinking he might be a little more focused going to all these court cases.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
You have to talk about certain things there and maybe not say something where it's going to cost him. He might be a little more in tune to his inner dialogue in court where the money is pending on that. But also then when he gets out of there, he gets to focus then on this and he knows what his message needs to be.
Yeah.
So I don't know that. What I imagine is I'll bet every day when Donald Trump gets up, somewhere on there it says court case.
Yeah.
Just being him.
Yeah.
This is not, freaking him out or anything.
Well, and I think he just
to the point he may be almost thriving.
Yeah, he's come off more confident in many ways than he did in 16 and in 20. And less distractions. I mean, more distractions with the court cases, but when it comes to his message and when it comes to how he's selling himself as a politician, less. Mike in Kansas City. Hey, Mike, good morning.
Yeah, I was talking to some Democrats not too long ago, and their off-the-record opinion is that if Biden wins the second election, it's going to destroy the Democrat brand. And they're talking about how the constituencies, specifically the working poor and the lower middle class, are all suffering so badly under Biden. Mm-hmm. And their opinion is that they're going to let Trump win, fix the economy up, and then they'll in 2028, they'll have different issues to go with. But the illegal immigration issue is really hurting the working poor badly.
It is.
As well as the inflation and everything else. And this is their opinion now that Biden screwed it up badly. And they're going to rework themselves, and they're going to try to get back to a little bit more Bill Clinton-ish traditional Democrat brand again. So who knows? You're talking about the dark days. The dark days were all by that Russian hoax that came out that it was a Russian hoax, and all that time that we spent with Swalwell and Bug Eyes out there in California, and all these people, going after Trump for something they knew was bogus to begin with.
Yeah.
So, let's talk about dark days. Let's talk about the Democrats created the dark days.
Well, listen, if Donald Trump winning wakes up the Democratic Party to stop being insane, that actually would be good for the country as a whole. Like, if they just get back to Bill Clinton policies and a party branded by Bill Clinton policies, and they tell the AOCs of the world that there is no future for them, broadly speaking, in the party, that would be a great win for America as a whole. But the question is, do they have the backbone to do it? And I mean as a party establishment. They still can't tell you there's two genders. I don't have a lot of confidence they can go back to common sense economic policy when they still can't just look you in the eye and say there's a man and there's a woman and that's it. So I hope for their sake, I hope for the country's sake, maybe that's a fallout of this, and that's a conversation for 9, 10, 11 months down the road. But it is going to be a fascinating next 8 months, and it is full steam ahead. Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Well, thank you, Taylor Swift, for the nice Super Tuesday voting message. We greatly appreciate that. Good morning. It is great to be back on a Wednesday morning on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. Appreciate Ray Stevens holding down the fort the last couple of days here. If you enjoyed him, and I know that you did, then I hope you'll be tuning into his show 10 to noon every weekday here on KCMO and streaming it on the KCMO Talk Radio app. So yesterday was Super Tuesday. Donald Trump rolled to victory on the Republican side. So the rematch is all but set between Trump and Biden. We are getting 2020 Part 2 in 2024. Well, Taylor Swift did not do what I know Joe Biden wished she would have done yesterday. Now, there's still time. But Taylor Swift put out a note in her Instagram stories yesterday, which is also where you can find on my Instagram. It's not like Taylor Swift's. I don't have 1 billion followers on Instagram like she does. But we did post photos of baby Charlotte Rose on my Instagram yesterday at Pete Mundo. You can see him there. We are now a family of 5, 6. I don't want to forget about Woody. Can't forget about the dog. We are now a family of 5 plus 1 dog after Charlotte Rose was born at 12:35 on Sunday afternoon. Mom and baby are doing great, and we are so excited. Her 2 older sisters are just in love. It's really fun to watch. So Taylor Swift puts on her Instagram stories yesterday, I wanted to remind you guys to vote the people who most represent you into power. That was her message on her Instagram yesterday. And good for her. I have no problem with that. Anybody who is famous, who has a big platform, if they remind you to go vote on big voting days, whether it's November 5th this fall, whether it's Super Tuesday yesterday, I have no issue with that. That is not a political statement. That's saying do your duty as an American. Because how many people around the world, either one, can't vote, or two, they go to vote in rigged elections all over the world, in third world countries, or, somehow Vladimir Putin, amazingly, just keeps getting reelected with like 97% of the vote. How's that happen? Right? We take it for granted in this country, and still a lot of people don't vote, amazingly, right? Like tens of millions of Americans are not going to vote this fall, believe it or not, in a presidential year. They are just not going to bother. They're not going to show up, despite the fact that for better or for worse, it is easier than ever to go out there and vote. So Taylor puts that message up on Instagram. No problem with it. To me, it's a sign that she is probably going to do the same thing on November 5th. I don't see her, assuming, too, she's still with Travis and there's not some big grandiose breakup and she's like, screw the Heartland, which I'm not predicting. But barring something like that taking place, I think that's all you're going to get from Taylor Swift between now and November, especially if these polls continue to show Donald Trump leading Joe Biden nationally, which is what you're seeing, by the way. There have been like 4 to 5 major polls that have shown Donald Trump up anywhere from 2 to 5 points on Joe Biden across the nation in the popular vote. We're not talking about, specific states that will ultimately decide the election. We're talking popular vote across the country. Trump's up 2 to 5 points. There was no point in 2020 where Donald Trump led Joe Biden across the board in a theoretical head-to-head popular vote. That never happened in 2020, not a single time. Now we've got 5 polls in the last week or so that show him leading. But yesterday, Karine Jean-Pierre, the White House press secretary, was asked about Taylor Swift, what she had to say on Instagram, and the fact that she's kind of backing off Joe a little bit.
Thank you, Karine. President Biden has said a possible endorsement by Taylor Swift is classified. How disappointed is he that she is telling people to vote, but not for him?
Going to be very careful. We're talking about 2024. So I can't comment on what Taylor Swift is saying or not saying. I have no idea. I've not seen those statements. And I'll just leave it there.
Okay.
Be mindful.
I'll just leave it there and be mindful. And there's not much to see here. And Taylor's going to do what Taylor's going to do. And, we're just going to keep doing our thing. They have come to the realization that Taylor Swift, 1, is not going to save them, and 2, really can't save them. The notion that we were sitting here 6 weeks ago and the Biden campaign was basically holding out hope for a Taylor Swift endorsement is, 1, living in fantasy land, and 2, beyond pathetic. Like, no one ever talked. See, and this is where many people who are Trump supporters completely lost the narrative on this thing. They were too busy attacking Taylor Swift on that whole deal, when, 1, there was really no evidence to suggest that she was interested in getting political at this point in her life. And 2, what it really showed was how desperate and pathetic the Biden campaign was to be 11 months out from an election and begging for the endorsement of the world's most famous pop star. But instead, what did a lot of, Republicans or conservative influencers, I use my air quotes when I say that, what were they harping on? Well, Taylor, she's secretly a demon who's going to come up and, hand Joe the White House again. Because, her cult followers are going to just, jump over fire to go vote for Joe because she tells them to. Based on what? She got 35,000 people to register to vote. 35,000 last year. That is nothing. That is a fraction of her following. 35,000 people registered to vote because of a Taylor Swift Instagram post, when meantime, she's got 282 million followers on her Instagram page. I'm unimpressed.
Meanwhile, Vivek's comments are marinating.
Yeah,
Right.
That's right. Vivek Ramaswamy
Made his big proclamation and said, didn't he say, let's see how this ages?
Yes.
He made his own little bold.
And I said he
statement.
was a fool then. He was convinced that Taylor was going to come out and just, run towards Joe and jump into his arms. Mm-hmm. And I see no way that's happening, because even if you're in a bubble like Taylor Swift is, and I think she's gotten out of that bubble spending time here in Kansas City and in the heartland and just being around 80,000 normal people at Arrowhead Stadium. But even if you're in that, private jet superstar bubble, if you're paying attention a little bit, you realize that a lot of people on Main Street are hurting. That, allowing 8.5 million people into the country, unfettered, unaccounted for, taking monies away and resources away from poor people and working poor in major American cities is not a popular policy. Even if you're someone who considers yourself an old school Democrat, it's not a popular policy. And even the Taylor Swifts of the world, I believe deep down, they'll never say it publicly, of course, but deep down they know it and they understand it. And that's why them not getting involved this time around in this election cycle is basically going to be their way of saying, I can't get behind what's going on right now without explicitly saying it. And as far as I'm concerned, that's fine. That's all I'm asking for. I don't need them to endorse anybody. I just want them staying out of it. 913-408-7957. Let's go to Leonard. He's hanging out on KCMO. What's happening, Leonard? Good morning.
Great name, Charlotte Rose. Congratulations, buddy.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Leonard.
This isn't a wake-up call for sound-minded people to run for the school. It's because when you take the textbook out of parental the tyranny and sometimes what a society deserves if it's in the hands of people with an agenda.
Leonard, you cut out there a little bit, but I got your broad point, and I think you're spot on. And thank you for the kind words on Charlotte Rose, by the way. What Leonard's referring to, of course, is the video that I just posted up on X. It's got now 1 million views, courtesy of Libs of TikTok. And it's leaders in Kansas City on National Reading Day, which was on Saturday, deciding that they were going to read Introducing Teddy, which is about a teddy bear who was a boy and thinks he's really a girl. Yeah, get out there, run for school board, get involved. Spot on, Leonard. Thanks for the kind words, my friend. Missouri Supreme Court says not so fast, not going to happen. They have denied a transfer request in the case of former KCPD Detective Eric DeValconaire, who was convicted of second-degree manslaughter and armed criminal action in the 2019 killing of Cameron Lamb and sentenced to 6 years in prison. This is not a shock, but what this basically means now is that Eric DeValconaire's future is in the hands of Governor Mike Parson. We know the family has been asking for a commutation of Eric DeValconaire's sentence after he was sentenced last year, and it has not happened thus far. Now, it can happen, of course, at any time during Mike Parson's tenure, and he's got, another 10 months or so before he's out of office as the governor of Missouri. And this became a bigger topic in the wake of what happened last Friday when Britt Reed, the son of Andy Reed, had saw his sentence. He had a commutation of his sentence late last week as well, and this was a major Friday news dump. Governor Parson put this out there at, 4:15 on Friday afternoon. I mean, the ultimate Friday news dump. And what did you hear from a lot of people in this community, in the pro-law enforcement community, of which I'm a huge proponent of, obviously? How could you do this for Britt Reed and still have Eric DeValconaire behind bars? Well, the governor did say on this show that he was going to let the legal process play out, that he was going to allow this thing to potentially go to the state Supreme Court and then from there make his decision. But until that happened, he was not going to decide either way on what to do about Eric DeValconaire's sentencing. Well, now we know. The Supreme Court has denied a transfer request. So basically now either Deval Conaire is going to serve out his conviction for second-degree manslaughter and, the 6 years in prison or whatever it ends up being, or the governor can commute the sentence. That's basically it. Those are the options that are left for him. So he can't kick the can down the road and say, I'm waiting on the legal system to play out. It has played out. So now it's back to him. Now, if you were to ask me right now, do I think that Governor Parson is going to go ahead and commute the sentence of Eric Deval Conaire? I do think he's going to do it. I don't say that with any kind of inside information from the governor's office, but I do think he's going to do it. And in fact, the fact that he went out there and did this for Britt Reid tells me that he eventually is going to do it for Eric Deval Conaire. Now, I know the family wants him back as soon as yesterday, obviously. But I think for him, this was part politics as well. You and I both know that if Britt Reid is not Britt Reid, this is not happening, right? We're all on the same page there. But he had to let the legal side of the Deval Conaire thing play out because that's what he said he was going to do. Now, in a perfect world, if Mike Parson wanted to try to kind of bury both of these stories on a Friday news dump, he would have done them both on the same day. The biggest mistake that he made was not waiting a week. If he had waited a week, he could have done Britt Reid and Eric Deval Conaire on the same Friday, and then they would have each taken away attention from each other. The media would have been confused as to which one to criticize first and foremost. Doing them together would have made a lot more sense for him. I'm not defending the Britt Reid thing, but what I also will say is that there's a lot of people who are screaming about it, who are being very disingenuous and only knocking the governor. And you can't only knock the governor in that decision. You also have to reasonably assume that Andy Reid and or the Chiefs basically asked the governor to do this. And the same people who are freaking out are the ones who are going to be at Arrowhead Stadium cheering on the Chiefs next fall. As if the team and Andy, whether it's Andy directly or somebody around him or somebody with the team, placed a call and said, hey, what do you think? Can you do something about Britt Reid's sentencing? But all people want to do, because most of them just want to make it about partisan politics, is knock the governor. As if the governor just woke up on a Friday and said, you know what I'm going to do today? This guy Britt Reid, I forgot he's been in prison for hitting that poor little 5-year-old girl, Ariel. I'm kind of in the mood to commute somebody's sentence today. Britt Reid, let's do him. You can't just crush the governor while also not crushing the Chiefs. And that is true for any media person in this town. And that is true for a lot of the officials as well, on both sides of the political aisle, who are criticizing here in this case. I'm sitting here saying it doesn't look great, but I'm also not dumb enough to think that power and prestige and celebrity, right or wrong, doesn't also play a major role in our legal system in this country in 2024 and has for a very long time. I have hope. Listen, I understand the legal system, the justice system can be one that can get a lot of people down from the federal level to what you see happening locally. But I do have faith because I want to have faith, but I also think there's sound reasoning behind it, that Governor Mike Parson will end up pardoning former KCPD Detective Eric Deval Conaire. If you missed it, here's what the governor said on this show back in November when I asked him about this very issue. Where are you at right now on the possibility of an executive commutation for Eric Deval Conaire?
Yeah, I'll be perfectly honest with you, Pete. It's been one of the toughest issues that's really on my desk, I would say. Trying to figure it out just because of my law enforcement career, and then trying to figure out how the system works and whether you let it work or do you feel like it failed. A couple of things I would point out, and with not getting out in too much detail because I haven't made a decision yet, but there's been lots of people reach out on his behalf. His family has, friends have. There's been other people reach out on the other side too, as you well know. But the one thing that bothered me more than anything about that case was the way the prosecutor handled that in Kansas City, by the accusation she was making about guilt or innocent without actually even knowing the facts herself. And it was at a time when there was a lot of civil unrest, and the problem is you don't ever want anybody convicted because of the political side of things. But she's did a poor example of setting the stage and making this more of a political issue when she should be doing what's right by the law.
That's Governor Mike Parson from November here on this show, talking about former KCPD Detective Eric DeValkenair, who we just had his wife on. Sarah, she is looking for now a full pardon from the governor. This comes in the wake of course, the Britt Reed commutation last Friday, which has nothing to do with Eric's case necessarily. But as you heard her say there, he's done, 600 of these since he's been in office. So you look at it, and by the way, the timeline that Sarah mentioned and that the governor mentioned there is important. When did this start? Cameron Lamb was shot by Eric DeValkenair in December of 19. Then the legal process got rolling in June of 2020. Gosh, what happened that sent this country into insane Looney Tune land around that time? George Floyd. The anti-cop narrative that is still costing us innocent lives and still costing us law enforcement and everything else every single day in this country, almost 4 years later, is that moment in time. And you had a prosecutor here in Jackson County that was doing nothing about the fact that the city and the county at large, but Kansas City, Missouri, largely in Jackson County, was deteriorating and heading towards a record year for homicides. And that was happening in 2020. She wasn't doing squat about it. Instead, she was like, hey, how can I stand side by side or kneel side by side or kiss the ring of these protesters and these activists? What can I do? Forget kissing the ring, kissing their butts. I'll go after the cop. I'll go after the white cop. Let's just call it like it is. She did her own little, mini George Floyd, Derek Chauvin song and dance here in Kansas City to try to score political points. And by the way, what happened a few weeks after she started that process? Well, Bill Barr and the feds had to come in here to clean up this damn town because it was going to hell in a handbasket, and the feds took hundreds of guns and bad guys, felons off the streets. And you saw a dramatic reduction in crime and in homicides in this town, the 13 weeks, 14 weeks that followed. Operation Legend, as it was known, which was an operation done by the feds, named after this poor 4-year-old boy, Legend Talifaro, who lost his life during that chaotic time in Kansas City. And it proved to be wildly effective. Yet we sit here 3 years later, and thank goodness we have a prosecutor who's hanging up her cleats. Can't happen soon enough. We got the countdown clock like we did for Rex Archer here in the studios. Who can't get out of her own way, who has been embarrassed every turn, especially in recent weeks. Because suddenly now the world has seen what has happened to Kansas City under her soft on crime leadership in the prosecutor's office. Gangs and thugs running wild around this town. And cops, as Sarah DeValkenair alluded to there, who just don't want to do their job because they're scared to death of being the next Eric DeValkenair. 913-408-7957 as we approach 8 o'clock. Rich Lowry will be here just after the top of the hour. Daryl is on KCMO. What's up, Big D?
Hey, not much. Hey, congratulations on the baby.
Oh, thank you, brother. I appreciate that.
Yeah, the only thing you got to look forward to is the snip, and it's nothing.
Who are you called the shots already, Daryl? Jeez.
Well, yeah, I'm trying to give her some ideas. I mean, after a 9-pound baby, what do you expect?
814. Come on now.
814. Okay, still 814 is a big baby.
Yeah, then you don't have to tell me. I saw it. It's a big old baby. You're right about that, Daryl. Well,
yeah. Hey, my prayers and thoughts are with Vulcan, his wife, and her family, because the way they this is going. That's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he broke the law. He was trying to outrun the cops, and they know it. And they've got to serve justice, or there ain't no justice at all.
Thank you, Daryl, and thanks for the homely advice there, pal. Appreciate you.
You bet. Hang in there.
Yeah, I may need more of that coming up if things go your way. Jeez. 573, this is the governor's number, by the way, 573-751-3222. 573-751-3222 to contact Mike Parsons' office on behalf of the DeValcon Air family. 9:21 on a busy Wednesday. It's great to be back. Thank you to Ray Stevens, who is here every day from 10 to noon on KCMO. Holding it down the last couple of mornings, John Whitmer filled in for him after we had our third baby girl on Sunday, Charlotte Rose, coming into the world at 12:35 in the afternoon. It's been a great couple of days. Our family is beyond blessed, and Claire and Chloe thus far have been very good little sisters or big sisters. Although, that middle one, you got to be careful. Don't touch the head! Don't touch the baby's head! You died! Keep that hand away! So
That's
we're working
tough
through
for
that.
a 3-year-old.
Yes, we're working through it. She's done very well, but, we got to obviously stay close right now.
Mm-hmm.
But Claire's taken on this whole oldest sister thing very well. She wants to hold her all the time. It's been pretty fun to watch that play out. John is in Shawnee. What's up, John? Good morning.
Hello, Pete. Congratulations to both you and Mark on your new children.
Thank you.
Rose, I'm sorry.
Charlotte Rose. Charlotte Rose.
Charlotte Rose. That's a beautiful name.
Thank you.
Your piece on the fatherhood was very, very nice. I wanted to tell you, Joe Biden, what he's going to say to Taylor Swift if she doesn't support him. He's going to say, Taylor, if you don't support me, you ain't black. Anyways, hey, I'm saving up my rant for tomorrow.
We
didn't have it this week.
You want a tirade Tuesday on Thursday?
Yeah, that would be a wonderful thing.
Well, let me give us some thought there, John. No promises, okay?
Okay, I'll wait. All right. Well, thank you, guys. You, have a wonderful day.
All right, you too there, John and Shawnee. Thank you very much. I figured we'd skip Tirade Tuesday since I was out this week. And I think what I might do is skip it, and then John's really got to build it up for next Tuesday at 8:35. All right? I can't do a tirade Thursday. It just doesn't feel right.
What I will say is if you're concerned about your topic expiring, you're welcome to call and rant anytime. It doesn't have to specifically be, but we just won't be running through a bunch in a row.
Yeah. I mean, if your tirade is topical to a news story, then the phones are always open for you.
Sure.
But if your tirade's about how your trash wasn't picked up, then, that's got to wait for Tirade Tuesday.
Well, some things can wait till tomorrow, like a stadium tax. Okay, that's not urgent now, but maybe something before Mayor Q comes on tomorrow.
Yeah.
Something like that would be more urgent.
And the mayor will be here at 7:30, so don't miss that on KCMO Talk Radio. 913-4087-957 is how you join us as we roll through what has been a very busy morning. It's not about, just Super Tuesday. We knew how that was going to play out. There's also a lot going on locally that needs to be addressed, like whether or not Eric DeValcon Air is going to get the full pardon from Governor Mike Parson, the former KCPD detective, whose wife, Sarah, was on the show this morning. If you missed that, it'll be up on the podcast after the show wraps up. Everyone's trying to figure out what Governor Parson is going to do. And, of course, this comes just a few days after Britt Reed had his sentence commuted by the governor. And yesterday, the Supreme Court basically said, we're not taking the case of Eric DeValcon Air. So now the last line of justice, so to speak, for the former KCPD detective who shot and killed Cameron Lamb back in December of 2019 is the governor doing a pardon or commuting the sentence, one or the other. Eric's wife, Sarah, asked for the full pardon this morning here on the show. And remember, what Governor Parson said on KCMO back in November was, he was going to wait for the legal process to play out. Well, now it has. And now we are a few days removed from the Britt Reed situation. So now there's extra pressure on the governor because of how public a commutation that was on Friday afternoon. So I think the governor's going to do it. I know there's a lot of people who are pessimistic, who don't think Mike Parson is going to do anything with Eric DeValconair's case. Now, he's done 600 pardons or commutations during his time in office. I think he's going to do it. I would say 60-40, the governor does it. But what I can't tell is when it's going to happen. The mistake that he made with Britt Reid is not necessarily that he did it. I know there's a lot of people screaming holy hell about how he did it and that he did it. And I get the perception is not good. I do. But it's very easy to just sit there and say, hey, that was wrong. That's ridiculous. But if he was going to do it anyway, and let's be honest, power and money and having the Chiefs brand and the Chiefs behind, a Britt Reid commutation goes a long way. Let's not kid ourselves. You can't only be mad at the governor and not be mad at Andy Reid. And how many of these people who are on their high horse the last few days are not going to go to a Chiefs game if they get invited next year? Are not going to watch a Chiefs game? Are not going to cheer on the Chiefs next year? None of them. They're all going to cheer on the Chiefs. And you think Britt Reid just, walks out of prison and Andy's like, hey, what are you doing here? I didn't know you were coming back. Like, you don't think he had any role here? So you can't just pick who you're mad at, oftentimes just based on the politics of it. So that's why I'm not freaking out like some people are. That being said, if the governor was going to do it, he should have just waited and done them both on the same day, DeValconair and Britt Reid. Because then the media wouldn't have known what to do. They wouldn't have known who to be mad at. And it would have taken some of the attention off one and the other. Instead, you have the Britt Reid thing last Friday, and now the DeValconair, who knows when that's going to come down, but it's going to have impacts separately instead of potentially doing them at the same time.